I would like to apologize to Dr. Vegapunk or any Dr. Vegapunk loyalists that I may have offended. I did a pretty critical review of him, saying that his irresponsibility with his research and the weapons that he invents for the world government put him on the same danger level as his former Mads colleagues, Judge and Queen and Caesar and all of them. And while I still stand by that statement, I recognize that he did not have much of a choice when going up against the world government. The amount of funding to keep up with his brain would inevitably come from an organization that does have its own demands. And this whole entire arc is the result of him defying the government. This Buster Call is what happens when he does. He's not as heartless of an opportunist as I imagine him to be. He's just following orders and quietly rebelling in any way he can, like installing a shutdown switch instead of a self-destruct button, for example. Hey, what's up? It's me, Meanie Mosey. This is my short series, 1 month, 1 goal, 1 piece, where I aim to finish One Piece before the end of the year. This video may or not be coming out around Christmas of 2024. I am behind because this video covers chapters 1088 through 1104. And that spans the time from when the fight at Full of Lead starts. The fight at Full of Lead begins, and it ends with them declaring that a Buster Call is going to happen at Egghead. If you've seen my previous videos, I'm going to structure this one a little bit differently because I'm going to start with small observations, and then I'm going to dive into the backstory that took up a majority of these chapters and is probably the main reason why I delayed this video, because I was thinking about it so much. Number 1. Kobe, with his little Detroit Smash self, destroyed that whole entire hand that was about to crush the Navy battleship at Full of Lead. He's just gotten so strong and he's come such a long way from Alvida. I don't know how this series is going to end. I think ultimately Luffy's gonna end up fighting either Shanks, or he's going to fight Kobe, or he has to fight Blackbeard or something. And the fact that Kobe has gotten so strong allows him to remain as a contender to fight Luffy potentially. I don't think he's at Emperor level yet, but he is making some strong improvements, so I'm wondering what type of poetic role that Kobe is going to play in the end now that he's fighting up there with like the biggest of them all. Garp has disappeared. We last saw him with Blackbeard and we haven't heard anything more of him. That is concerning. I don't know what's going on there. Hope he doesn't die. I don't know what Garp's death would do. Maybe it would light a fire under the Navy to really crack down on the pirates, even though it already seems that they're really cracking down on the pirates. But then again, the Navy is kind of not the biggest bad anymore. Right now, the Celestial Dragons and the Five Elders and Emu are kind of emerging as this even worse force that is just pulling the puppet strings of the Navy. Either way, Garp dying is gonna stir the pot a little bit, but maybe he didn't die, I don't know. Last thing is the water level rose because Emu destroyed Lulusia with that big weapon that Vegapunk invented, and it said the water levels rose. And so already we've encountered a couple of islands in this series where their well-being depends on the water levels. And so that is Long Ring Longland, and that's Water 7. Water 7 was already having an issue with the water overtaking them, and so I'm wondering how that's gonna affect them. And Long Ring Longland, the tide kept going up and down, and so I'm wondering if those people might be stranded at some point, or maybe we don't even care about them anymore. Maybe I'm just thinking about it. And also the last thing I was kind of wondering is that hole, the waterfall in the sea, looks a lot like Eni's lobby. There was a big cavern and everything, and Eni's lobby was kind of just built around it. And so I'm wondering if they used that weapon before and if they potentially used it to create their prison system, or I wonder if that weapon had anything to do with the creation of Eni's lobby. And if I said the last thing, oops, this is actually the last thing. The God Valley murder game. Every time I hear about another thing that the Celestial Dragons have done, it makes me really think, what could they have possibly done in the Void Century that made it so bad that they had to just erase it all from history? God Valley murder game, what happened when Garp defeated the Rocks Pirates, that has been erased. That has been erased from history already. And it's just like some things we just don't know anymore. We just don't know how that happened. But the things that we do know how it happened and how atrocious they are already, the fact that they're just going and hunting slaves in order to like decrease the population levels or just even it out or something like that, that makes me concerned, like, what did they do during the Void Century that they had to delete it? Or maybe it's other people's knowledge that was uncovered in the Void Century. I don't know. I gotta really go take a hard look at the timeline of One Piece and really figure out when things happened, because I know the other thing was like the enslavement of the Tontadas and all that. That was not voided out. What they've done to the fishmen, that's not voided out. So it's obviously worse than just plain slavery and being cruel to slaves. But what is worse? What could they be hiding? What if everybody knew about it could be dangerous to their rule as a world government? I'm just curious what that is. Just a little curious. I guess that's the whole reason why this series is so darn long and we're still watching today. Kuma's backstory. I have not bawled when reading this manga since I read Corazone's backstory. Things have been sad, things have been tough. I haven't shed a tear until now. It is kind of like Cora's backstory, but I think it's more similar to Robin's backstory since the stories are so different. But it's like the unique tragedy of the quiet suffering of people who never get to live for themselves. The people whose lives are determined from the very start, whose existence is a threat to the government that is supposed to be protecting everybody. That's why it reminds me of Robin's, because Kuma's story, like Robin's, is one of isolation and sacrifice and survival under forces far beyond their control. And Kuma's story hits harder because the difference here is that we knew this one was coming. We knew Kuma's fate. We watched him transform into a mindless machine right before our eyes across Thriller Bark, Sabaody, Marineford, and Return to Sabaody. These are all very old arcs. These are like pre-time skip. And we've had years to accept that Kuma turned into a robot. And yet here we are crying about it because with Oda's unique way of like reverse storytelling, in a few short chapters he took that cold mechanical fact that Kuma turned into a robot and he turned it into a tragedy. Kuma turned into a robot and it happened right before our eyes. The reason why it wasn't a tragedy before was because we did not know who Kuma was. He was one of the warlords of the sea. He was a bad guy. He was working for the world government. We didn't know who he was. This arc tells us who he is. Kuma, pastor, king, tyrant, revolutionary, warlord, father, friend, slave. He's been called so many things in this story. He probably has the most titles in this story, but he has rarely had any control over any of those titles. Kuma was born into tragedy as a member of the Buccaneer race. His fate was already written before he took his first breath. There were people who were wiped out for their strength and their connection to the sun god Nika, which I'm thinking may have been a similar issue with the Lumineers, because as we know, King had a firm belief in Nika and all of that, and we're his people. Not here. But Kuma's father tried to keep their race a secret. The doctor was like, yeah, I got you. He didn't got you. The truth got out and Kuma's family was enslaved. When Kuma was still only a child, he had already lost everything, his mother and his father. Enter Jenny, because we had a familiar face enter first. It was Ivankov, but Jenny was his younger sister. Jenny was such a bright light in Kuma's life, and I think that without her, he might not have lived as long as he did. Kuma reminds me of The Giving Tree, which is a children's story by Shel Silverstein, and if you haven't read it, or it's been a minute, it's about this tree that loves this little boy so much that she gave him everything that she had. When the boy was younger, she gave him shade and leaves and her branches to climb, things that did not take that much out of her. But as the boy got older, he needed more material things. He sold her apples for money. He cut off her branches to make a house. He took everything from her. He took the trunk so we could make a boat. And then she was nothing more than a stump. And even as a tree stump, the boy, who is now an old man, came and sat on her like a chair. And the whole entire time, she was simply happy because she was able to provide for the boy even though he did nothing for her, because she's a tree. Like, what's he gonna do for a tree? He only made demands from her his whole entire life. And Kuma is similar in that he is just happy to provide for others. Like, he has a for sale sign on his whole entire body. He was creative with his devil fruit, and it is really just a great example of how devil fruits can reflect the person's character, because Kuma's devil fruit was introduced as the pawpaw fruit, something that could push things away from other people, even make you travel. And Kuma discovered that he could push out intangible things such as pain and carry them for someone else, or take on those burdens for someone else. And I think someone without Kuma's heart would not have even thought to do something like that. Every Sunday, he stood in his church and took on the suffering of the elderly and said nothing happened. Nothing happened for him every single Sunday. And that's why I'm glad that Jenny was there, because she truly saw Kuma and what he was doing and who he was, and she loved him for it, and she protected him, and she prevented him from giving too much of himself. Because the old people, they don't know what he's doing for them. They just know that he's getting rid of their pain. They don't know that he's going to go take it on himself after they all leave. It's not like they're being selfish or anything like that. It's not like they're being inconsiderate. It's just what they do. That's just what they do. As long as someone's there to provide it for them, then that's what they're going to take advantage of, because they don't know any better. They don't know what he's sacrificing for them. But Jenny was there to stop that. They were like, oh, I wish you could do this every day. And she's like, nope, only Sunday. Nope. If you could not do it on Sunday, that would be great also. But nope, we're only doing this one day each week. And she wanted to marry Kuma. As we watched him grow up, she eventually proposed to him, technically, I guess. And she wanted to marry him so that she could hopefully give him some of the happiness that he'd been giving freely to others for years. But he refused because reasons, like so many tragic reasons. Like, maybe he believes happiness is for other people, but not for him. Maybe he doesn't believe that Jenny could truly be happy with him in case something similar to his parents happened, because that's what happened when his mother married his father and then she died in slavery first. Maybe he believes that happiness is something that he can do for others, but he's not able to provide it by simply existing like he does for Jenny, because it's his existence in the first place that got his parents killed, because if he hadn't been born a buccaneer, they wouldn't have been captured. I don't know, maybe he's living his whole entire life as some sort of apology for existing, which is what Frankie was talking to Robin about on the train in Water 7, was that her existence is not a sin. She does not have to apologize for being alive. Jenny was his backbone. Jenny was his strong will. I think that Kuma getting turned into a cyborg would not have been able to happen if Jenny was still alive. I never thought about what happened to Kuma before. I never thought of it as something sad. I never thought, what if this isn't his choice? What if this is being done to him? I never thought about Kuma's transformation at all. It was just a statement of fact as something that happened. It was just something that happened in the story along with everything else that was happening and everything else that was not happening. And now, under this new light of learning who Kuma is, we can see that though it was his choice, it was not in the least bit fair. Kuma chose to die slowly and willingly, and the whole time he was grateful, even though the very people who claimed to solve his problems were the ones who caused them to begin with. Not once was he angry or afraid or bitter or sad. He was grateful for the opportunity to save his daughter. He said thank you. He made his little 2-year agreement, and he didn't try to get out of it in any way. He didn't try to trick the government. He didn't try to take Bonnie and run. He let the government take everything from him, and he didn't question it once. And even when he had nothing left to give, the celestial dragons still weren't done with him, because they rode his body around Marie Joie like a slave and a toy, just bragging like, I have Kuma the Tyrant as my pet. Wow. The celestial dragons and the world government have had their hands on him his whole entire life, and as kind-hearted as he was, As the weak-willed pacifist that he was, he never stood a chance against them. This happened right before our eyes. We saw all of this very clearly. We saw it happening every single step. At Thriller Bark, we saw Kuma test the Straw Hat's resolve by providing the pain for Zoro to take on. At Sabaody, we saw him scatter the crew to the wind, and we felt confused at his actions. We were afraid of what he did. Basically, inside of the 2-year time skip, at Marineford, we watched him stand silent. We saw Ivankov yelling at him, asking him what's going on. There was like a hint of tragedy there, but then again, it was Kuma. It was another like big bad. Like, we weren't thinking about him that much. But by the time we returned to Sabaody, and I forgot who the first person to get to the ship was. Maybe it was Frankie. But Kuma was only a little bit more than a machine. He just got up and walked away like he fulfilled his order that was placed on him. We accepted this as a fact, like, oh yeah, something's going on with Kuma. La da da. This was the path that he took. But now we're seeing all of this again, but this time we understand what it's costing him. Every moment that felt cold and detached is now covered over by this layer of humanity as this man gave his own up. The choices that he makes are the result of the last shreds of humanity that he has. Like, he wasn't just scattering them around, he was saving their future. He had been watching Luffy since before he even set sail like a guardian angel. He is a Bartolomeo level fan of the Straw Hat Pirates, and he believed in them, and he knew where to send each of them because we saw panels of him going to all of the different islands that he sent them to because he was researching ways to cure Bonnie's disease. He protected the Straw Hats at the cost of everything he had because that's who Kuma is. He's a man who quietly bears the pain of others and just keeps moving forward. Kuma's story hurts because it is a story about quiet, selfless sacrifice. He didn't fight to be remembered. He didn't want glory or revenge. He just wanted the people he loved to be safe and happy. And in the end, the world government took everything, absolutely everything from him. His body, his mind, his legacy. And to the world, Kuma is a tyrant, a monster, a machine, a pacifista, just all these other things. But to Bonnie, the Straw Hats, and to us as readers now, he's only a hero. And why would he tell us about this tragedy after it already happened? Like, why would you make me watch it and then show me through the whole time I didn't care at all? That's what's so rude about it. That's what, oh my gosh. And Bonnie is 12 years old, so that's wild.
Question time.
Some questions I have as my camera begins to run out of battery. It's not a question, more of an observation. I still remember that Vegapunk placed a phone call to someone on the island who we don't know yet. And the Buster call is happening. I just know that someone might be coming to help. We don't know who they are yet. So, that's that. And then the last thing is Bonnie has some power that she got from experimentation by the Celestial Dragons. They haven't said outright what the power is, but he said it's not age related, but it's like future related or something like that. And they thought it was useless. So I'm just kind of wondering what that is. And Bonnie is very interesting now because she's 12 years old. And I was gonna ship Bonnie and Sanji because like when we first met her, like she was like really into eating and everything, and she was a pirate and all that. But now, no, not at all. No, I don't do that. Nope. It's kind of crazy. Thank you for watching. I'm still determined to catch up before the end of the year, and given that we have about a week left, I'm behind about a week now. So let's see. Let's D, E, F, and G. I think there's like 11:34. Espera, lo siento, pero espera. Yep, there's 11:34. I got 30 more chapters left. So I think I'm going to do 2 more videos, one chunk of 15 and then another chunk of 15. I don't know when the first one's going to release, but the second one is probably going to get released right on New Year's Eve. That's that. If you liked this video, like this video, please. It helps out the channel and it spreads it around. What's more important than spreading around love and awesomeness this holiday season? That's going to get aged poorly whenever it's not the holiday season, but whatever. And subscribe to my channel. Yeah, subscribe, because I'm cool and you're cool too, and that's what cool people do. I've been Meanie Mosey. I'll catch you guys next time when I review chapters 11:05 through 11:19. Bye bye.